Hello and welcome to my brand new Born Again Believer channel. My name is Victor and I became born again at the start of 2023. With me is my maniac little dog named Loki. He has been featured on American Ninja Warrior, running on the sidelines, featured here.
Be proud they're on the sideline along with their dog Loki.
And this little maniac is going to help me not look like a robot while I give my testimony. Oh, kisses are the best. Kisses are the best. Thank you, Loki. All right, you can go sniff stuff. Okay. I'm going to give my story of how I became a born-again believer in Jesus Christ. I grew up Catholic, and in high school I became a belligerent atheist. I got really into studying and disproving the Western logical arguments for God's existence, such as St. Anselm's ontological argument. In college, I planned to study philosophy and computer science. I took a Religion 101 class, which I really enjoyed, so I ended up switching from philosophy to religion. And at the end of college, I was an agnostic / Taoist and post-modernist. And that was my answer for over 2 decades. Basically, it's just a wordy, I don't know, and I don't think anyone else knows either. Fast forward to 2020 and 2021. I had a family. Politics were splitting families and friends. A virus had disrupted the entire planet. And while all this chaos was happening in politics and health, the Federal Reserve banks printed 40% of all of the M2 money supply ever created over an 18-month period. And as a result, inflation jolted to double digits, and the real number was actually double what they were reporting. In the middle of all this chaos, I was in search of an arc to save my family from the potential end of the dollar system and chaos that we would have in the world as a result. I started to randomly listen to some Christian channels at the same time, and there was one particular guy named Bo Polney who described the dollar system as a Babylonian system, which I hadn't really heard a lot about. Bo has a questionable track record of predicting events, but he has a stellar grasp of the financial system, and he got me thinking about global events in terms of Bible narratives. On a personal timeline, I met a great friend through my son's Ninja Warrior team. Our kids were teammates and best friends, and we really clicked. In 2022, this friend was diagnosed with late-stage cancer. I started to binge on near-death experiences that year, in part because of my friend getting really sick. I was floored to hear people come back from the other side with stories of God, Jesus, loved ones, hell, and more. My dogs love near-death experiences too. My friend died, and I was asked to speak at the Celebration of Life ceremony. While I put together a speech, I wanted to end on a spiritual note, but I still didn't know what I believed. I stumbled onto a video by Turek about DNA as intelligent design. I'll link to that video in the description. DNA is 3.5 billion characters, unique to every single one of us, and it's replicated across 100 trillion cells. And it's responsible, ultimately, it's the blueprint for all the complex systems of the body and supporting self-aware beings. In my speech, I also mentioned the law of conservation of energy, namely that energy is not created or destroyed, it just changes form. Fast forward about 2 months, and my son and his ninja buddy and I drove 4 hours away to a ninja competition. On the drive home, I decided to play a nurse's near-death experience, or NDE, that I had been skipping over for weeks. This nurse named Penny Wittbrodt, might be pronouncing that wrong, she died and was met by her grandmother, who had died when she was a kid. She was confused. "Grandma, I thought you died." And her grandmother told her, "No, silly, you learned this as a kid. Energy can't be created or destroyed, it just changes forms." I thought, that's interesting. Just talked about that. Later in Penny's NDE, God walked her through the design of her DNA, explaining where his imprint is within all of our DNA strands. I got goosebumps. Here I was with my friend's son in the car with me, which rarely happened at that point, and for the first time ever, I heard the 2 ideas I cobbled together from my Celebration of Life speech in one video. I had to pause the video and tell my son and his friend what happened. It still took me a couple months to be officially born again, but between the dozens of NDE testimonies and this experience, I became born again. It's surreal being on this side of the fence. Over my decades of being an agnostic and atheist, I chatted with a lot of really sincere, earnest Christians who wanted nothing more than to convert me and save my soul. I engaged some of them, but I just didn't believe it was real. And now I'm on the flip side, where I'm reading the Bible from start to finish, assuming it's true, rather than reading it as a skeptic. And I know that many are called, but few are chosen. I'm now one of those eager to convert followers of Jesus Christ. I'm doing my best to surrender all areas of my life to God's direction and for God's glory. I'm excited to start this channel, to leave something here for believers to be encouraged, and hopefully to share the gospel with non-believers from a perspective of a lifelong skeptic turned believer. Thank you if you made it this far. More content soon, and hopefully it won't look like a hostage video.